Hello, hello. Welcome back to Diary of a Psychic Medium with me, Amber Amrine. Today, Sean Stone joins us to discuss the spiritual dimension of filmmaking and creativity, the purpose of human existence and collective evolution, and so much more. Here we go. Just a friendly reminder, next week is our monthly Mystic Mail episode of the podcast. The first episode of every month is devoted to answering all of your questions. If you have any questions about the cosmos, about life, about any mind-bendy topics, feel free to send them. As always, you can send a DM on Instagram at Channel with Amber. If you're listening on Spotify podcast, leave a comment with your question. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave a review with your questions. Don't be shy. Engage, my friends. Alrighty, Sean Stone is a filmmaker, media host, author, actor, poet, speaker, and truth seeker working at the intersection of politics, culture, and spirituality. He began his spiritual path at 10 while traveling through Tibet, Nepal, and India with his father, award-winning filmmaker Oliver Stone, and also appeared in several of his dad's films, including JFK, The Doors, and Natural Born Killers. Sean studied American history at Princeton and Oxford, where he wrote a thesis on the modern history of the New World Order. He went on to build a career in film and documentary work, collaborating closely with his father on Alexander, and later producing and directing projects such as The Paradigm of Money, Best Kept Secret, and RFK Legacy. Sean has also hosted the reality show Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura and the interview program Buzzsaw, formerly on Gaia TV. A creator through and through, he continues to create across film, writing, and media. Dun, 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 dun. Here's Sean. Alrighty, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Can you share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. It's funny to introduce oneself. I mean, I've been working in and around film and media um, since I was a kid. I was acting in films, very small roles as a kid, and then I basically started directing. Like my first documentary was at 19, doing behind the scenes of the film Alexander. And basically after college, just carried on into again that film and media space. So books, I've done podcasts, I've made films. I mean, yeah.
Just create. You're a creator.
Well, yeah, for the most, I mean, exactly. I feel like, we all have to create in different capacities, right? And what's available to us. So, creation is an important aspect of life and keeps us mentally healthy without, self-destructing.
Sure. Do you feel your creative ventures have influenced or supported any sort of spiritual pursuit? And what I mean by that is, like, when I dance, I feel like it's helped strengthen my ability to channel energy, or it's kind of informed how I want to channel. I guess, has movie making in some way strengthened your channel?
Well, it's a different type of thing. I mean, you're talking like being embodied with dance, and there's certain fluidity to that experience. I would say that films themselves are sort of portals, and everyone that gets to create one and understand like that process understands like there's an energy and there's a life to it, that's being generated and manifested, and yeah, this I say portals because essentially again there's like this they have a life of their own, and some have energy that like you can tangibly feel like is heavier, or some is lighter. It transports us. So to say like has it changed, like how do you say, to access spirituality? I mean, I don't know if the filmmaking process is more of a, how do you say, you see the product, right, as an audience, like you see a product, but you don't actually experience all of the spiritual challenges you go through to actually make to create that, right? And that's what's sort of fascinating about these things, that the energy, the energy from day to day that has to be sustained when you're in production, let's say, the energy that comes through people, actors, like oftentimes actors talk about, they're channeling, um, sometimes entities, but certainly they're channeling energies in their performance, and they have to be open to that creative spark, that genius. Um, and then, again, it's like, I would say, to me, the more evident aspect of what you're talking about, like being open to the spiritual side, is more in the writing phase, because uh, certainly there's inspiration, visual inspiration, when directing and working with actors and whatnot, but the actual writing process is opening up a channel through yourself to basically, visualize something. And where do these visions come from? Well, someone's getting carjacked. Um, Sounds like I'm in New York City.
Our worlds are intermingling.
Right? It's funny. But where the visions come from, and like where does the dialogue come from? All that is very interesting, right? Because we don't know what is inspiring, um, the insights that gets put down on paper and becomes a story. And so I think that's, to me, where I could say I've felt over the years, um, like the impetus of, sometimes I know, like, okay, it's things that I'm working through in my own psyche. There's an aspect of that with storytelling, with writing, where we're working through problems, we're working through situations, right, relationships, and we have a way of putting that into what we're writing or working on. And then there's also, again, there's something that's like beyond us, that's moving through, in terms of the where sometimes, like, where do these stories come from, and yeah, what's what needs to move.
In your work, you tend to dabble into heavier topics frequently. How do you remain grounded, I guess, when unpacking these topics that can very frequently, I feel like, be destabilizing?
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty grounded, uh being a Capricorn as part of it, I guess. uh I've always been pretty balanced as a person. um it's like, I think it's how we grow up, and mixture of our soul, our you could say, like our soul's incarnation, our journey, the lessons we're here to learn. And in my case, I've just never been like, even when I'm extreme, I'm pretty balanced in terms of like finding my way back to center and to self. And so, um when it comes to like the journey, again, like, we look back and we say, wow, like, what roles was I playing at that time? What role was I serving at that time? And regardless, I think the balance, like the factor of like balance and grounding, I always come back to, is like the body, in terms of spiritual practices, daily meditation, um, even just like embodiment through exercise. You talk about like movement, but the idea of like all kinds of movement, whether it's physical activity, sport, yoga, jogging, whatever, just like come back, be with the body, come back to like, what we're eating, what kind of food is nourishing us, having a healthy diet, not like not overeating, not eating, junk foods, all that kind of stuff. Or when you do, like, coming back to, then, okay, I've had too much sugar, I gotta, like, clean out. This is key to like keeping ourselves, our vehicle, right? The body being this vehicle by which we're traveling through this experience of consciousness, and self-regulating. So the more we can like lean into the body to ground, and sometimes just do like, doing practices. I love, over the years, I've done different things. I've done like, the 3-day water fast, or like the week juice fast, or month. Actually, every year I do like, during Ramadan, I like to just fast from like no food, until sunset for the month. Um, or occasionally I'll do other adventures like 3 days of darkness retreat, things like this, doing ayahuasca, doing iboga, doing kambo. It's like, again, all coming back to the earth, to the body, to the plant medicines, to our own insights through from, as I said, daily meditation, daily practices of being with the body, sitting in silence, sitting just with ourselves.
Piggybacking off of that, what do you feel it means to be human? Why are we here?
I'm literally working on something right now that deals with that. Um, there's a million answers to that, because I think our experience is so layered, are of so multidimensional in terms of the different factors, the karmic factors, the different interpretations. It's a prison, it's a prison, it's an education, it's a school. A school can feel like a prison can become a school. It depends on how you work with it. Um, it's certainly, I believe, for our evolution as souls, and also to play different roles, to have the experience of playing within the creation that we co-created, as the greater oneness that we are all connected to and never separate from, even though we have this illusion of separation, through the mirroring effect of the mind. And this is a realm of mind that we live in. So the mind is full of mirroring and echoes, and it's not reality. It's just it's a perception, right?
Mm.
So we are here to explore these perceptions, play these roles, try on these different costumes, if you want to call it, right? And in that process, our souls learn, we grow, hopefully we become more sensitive, more attuned to, um, not just our own individual evolution, but the evolution of collective consciousness, right? As a whole, as a humanity, and then beyond that, galactically. So what it is to be human and why we're here, I think there's many different ways of explaining it and understanding it. Um, but I do like to boil it down to like learning things, um, learning not only ourselves, well, let's say most importantly, learning ourselves through this experience, this interface with what we call reality, but ultimately realizing it's only ourselves we ever interface with. We never interface with anything but our own minds. It's kind of the craziest thing to really wrap your head around,
Yeah.
that you're not interfacing with anyone, you're interfacing with your own mind. And it's like, we can hear things, and we can, obviously, people will bring their own insights, but it's always through this lens, through our own lens, our own perspective. We can never get outside of it.
Yeah, I always lean on the analogy of the same way our dreams are essentially just made up of our consciousness, kind of portrayed in different characters and scenarios. The same holds true physically. And I feel like the more you come to feel that and understand that, the more freeing it is. Like there's no embarrassment. There's no, I
Mm.
don't, nothing matters as much. We're all just sort of playing and unpacking in
Yeah.
this like giant playground. And there are a lot of big feelings and scary feelings, but it's fine. It's fine. It's still ultimately us. And I feel incredibly, incredibly freeing.
Yeah. I mean, if you are the oneness and you're all knowing, what would you do? You'd be bored. You have to break it up. You have to create something that becomes a challenge, right? And you have to separate. You have to create, again, so you create the separation, the illusion of separation. You create all this, the darkness, and to challenge the light, and create these cosmic plays in the same way that we as humans create dramas that have, dark and light in them, right? They have heavy emotions. They have, things that don't feel good, the challenges that make us feel sad, like all this we create, but likewise the creator creates the same play for us to play in. And how else would it be? I mean, we could imagine a world where um, there's just love and peace, and it would probably get boring pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Without darkness, there is no light. Without joy, there is no sorrow. They just complement each other in such a beautiful way and allow us to appreciate what we have here. I feel like even with the concept of death, we're all going to die at some point, and it forces us to really make the most of our time here. It makes us soak it in and not get so
Yeah.
lost in the emotions. Yeah.
Mm, exactly. It creates finitude, the illusion of finitude, because death is an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
The energy continues, the soul carries on. We don't really know. This could all be a holographic experience. We could wake up, back uh, in between lives with, the aliens in the lab, and I don't know, it could all just this will just feel like a dream. We wake from this life, and we'll be like, oh, that was a dream. I took it so seriously.
You, as the creator of your reality, what is your favorite thing you've created?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a favorite thing. It's so funny. No, it's like it's people always ask me this stuff like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite place to visit? What's your favorite this? I'm like, I don't have favorites. I don't
I'm the
choose
same way.
favorites because they're all expressions. They're all expressions of me. No, they're all it's the same like having like I don't know, if I had kids, it's like who's your favorite kid? It's like, well, this one is like more this and that one is more that. This movie is more this, that movie is more that. They're all expressions of me at different times, right? Everything that I've created. And likewise, everything that I've experienced is a different expression of me at different times. Every landscape, it's like sometimes you're like, I'm in the mood for some tropics, other times you're like, I'm in the mood for mountains. I'm in the mood for the desert, It's like, why do you have to value it? One is greater than another.
Touche.
It's like it all creates the oneness, right? So can't we appreciate all of it, even the dark? Like looking back, I'm sure
Mm.
like we can look back and be like, man, that was a very challenging time, and I appreciate that I got through it, right? That I survived it. I'm able to like laugh about it now, um, and not to diminish, real sorrow and sadness, but yeah, that is the oneness. Like if we can keep our eye on the greater perspective, I think we can value things more, each with what it offers, and again, yeah, for what it brings to our reality and the qualities that it expresses, even our flaws, even our mistakes, even our whatever, the things that we can look back and say I regret, but still own it and take responsibility and love it in its own right, and for its own perfection, perfect imperfection.
What are you still learning about yourself or in the process of unpacking?
Everything. I don't know what's real. I don't know what's going on here. I mean, I think it's the funny thing is like there were like, there were like phases in my life when I was like, okay, like, whatever. I started doing like conspiracy theory, the show with, back in like 2011, and I was like deep into like ghost hunting back then, and like my first film was, based on my experience breaking into haunted mental hospitals and, having experiences of high strangeness, right? And for years I was deep into interviewing people like, the David Ikes and the Corey Goods, and, you know, people that were like that have say, some that, claim to have experienced things with UFOs and aliens and underground bases, and some are more credible than others, but certainly like I was deep into this stuff, and now I'm just kind of like, I don't really know, and I don't really care. There's like an aspect of me that's just like, I don't. What does it matter to me? People live their entire life. I've seen them come and go. Great researchers, who like written books on conspiracies and this and that, and they've come and they've died and they're gone. They never got to the answer while they were here. I'm betting on the other side they might have more. They might have found some
That's
more.
true.
If they're meant to, they'll find the other side. But you can live your entire life searching out like whatever, the mysteries of X, whatever, who killed Kennedy, this, that, and the other. And, when you do an ayahuasca journey, it's like they don't give you the answer. There's like the beings that show up and the various visions and stuff. It's like they never give you the straight answer. They give you glimpses, they give you images, and it's up to you to interpret what that means. And what I find is oftentimes like the moment you think it's something like, oh, I see, the image changes before your eyes. It's like the blind man with the elephant. If you know that parable, it's like there's basically like, they're basically not blind. They're in a dark room. They're in a black room, right? But they're basically blind. And so one guy grabs the elephant's tail and he's like, oh, what is it? This is a rope, and the other one is grabbing, the tusk, and he's saying, oh no, this is a horn, and then the other one is grabbing like the leg and he's saying, no, it's a tree. It's like, each person is grappling at something they'll never be able to perceive. So we're learning, but never attached to what you think you know. Just keep learning.
I feel like that's such an important theme right now that I feel like it's an important lesson that I feel like needs to be integrated a little bit more, because there's a lot of black and white thinking, I feel. A lot of people that are sort of starting to move away from that. But it kind of takes me even to religion or mythology. All of these stories, all of these beliefs are all basically saying the same thing in a different way. And I feel like the details ultimately don't matter, especially if you look at like parallel dimensions and stuff. Everything is going to exist somewhere to someone. It is going to be truth somewhere, So whose truth is more true literally does not matter, because if they're all correct, essentially.
All that matters is your truth. And this is where it's interesting. See, I like to come back to the body, to nature, right? Because this to me is like the only, like we talk about reality, but reality is perceptual, right? So the only thing that actually like puts like a gauge or like some kind of like reality check is nature, right? So someone can be out here like, saying whatever they want, believing whatever they want. The universe is going to check them, and it's going to say, "Are you sure?" And as I said, it's going to make you reassess it. It's going to, as soon as you think you've got it, it's going to change before your very eyes. So can you stay open to that realization and to your own, let's say, intuition to help guide you? Because as like, as all the traditions talk about, like if you avoid something, like let's say, whatever the metaphor is, like you're driving your car, you don't put gas in the tank. I'm avoiding that. I don't want to deal with that. Well, the car's going to run out of gas. You don't change the oil. You don't take care of the car. Guess what? It's going to break down. The universe is the same way, right? That's the reality check. The reality check is like, okay, you're doing this to your body. You're vapor, whatever. You're depleting your body, your energy, everything. You run down, you break down. Or psychologically the same. I'm avoiding something. I don't want to address it. I want to, put it in a box. It's gonna bury it. It's gonna blow up. It's gonna come back to you in some way or another, right? So the universe wants us to basically have like a dance with reality. Yes, it's our perception, but it's also a co-creative experience. So a lot of like New Agers are like, oh, just manifest whatever you want. That's not how it works. You don't get to just manifest, rainbows and roses all the time. It's like, no, there's got to be the fecund, the fertilizer that's got to go in, right? There's got to be the shit from which the lotus grows. That's how life works. There is a balance. There is a dance between dark and light, between the positive and negative. And so you can't get too caught up with, oh, it's all bad or it's all good. It's like, no, it's just we're dancing between the two. And so again, like we can have, whatever truth we want. It doesn't really matter. The universe is going to check our reality. It's going to give us feedback. It's going to challenge us, it's going to make us question things and ourselves.
I work a lot with the fairy realm, and they're such masters, I feel, at that, where in their realm, everything is very fluid, everything is malleable. If a fairy being presents itself the next day, it's going to look somehow else. So they're going to be, I don't know, a lot more chipper, where before they were like quiet and somber. And with that, too, a lot of times, I guess it's more like a human's misunderstanding of the realm, where they tend to, in stories, kind of put them into categories of good fairies and bad fairies, but they all hold a purpose. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
not a purpose
Yeah.
we would enjoy, but it doesn't, that's fine. It's still like is something important that needs to be carried through, and they're willing to sort of take that burden and play with it.
Yeah. And again, we like to, create like good guys and bad guys in our own perception. But, your persecutor is loved by somebody. So, it's always a relationship thing, right? Like this person is tormenting me, but someone loves them and they love someone. So, again, it's like we don't, when it comes to like hatred, for example, like I think I believe that hatred is or anger and hatred are basically emotions that are powerful to transform situations as long as you don't personalize,
Hmm.
right? So the problem is when we try, we personalize it and becomes like, oh, I hate that person. Now you're basically you're stuck to that person. You become energetically linked. So it's the same with the fairy. Oh, that's the bad fairy. Well, now you're in a conflict. Now you're in a
Exactly.
struggle. Now you guys are tied together. Whereas like, okay, I hate this situation. I want to change the situation, right? I want to change the circumstance. I want to, work to change things or forgive someone in the process. But if you hate that person, you're like energetically now you're enmeshed. You're enmeshed with each other.
I feel like anger is an emotion that is very misunderstood and misused frequently, because it is a very powerful, like, boost of creative energy when channeled into a productive way. I like to use it when I don't want to do something. If I'm like, putting something on the back burner, or
Mm.
not wanting to tackle it, or it's just something that's kind of uncomfortable. If something initiates some sort of anger, okay, great. This is some like life force juice coming in. And then now I have energy to sort of tackle
Hmm.
the thing. Um, Emotions are obviously just so, it can be all consuming, and so it's so easy to get lost into the story of them. But I feel like the more that we can learn to create
Yeah,
with our emotions rather than be at the mercy of them, it makes such a difference.
of course, of course. Yeah, it's something that you can't control. If you try to control, you suppress.
Mm,
So you have to feel. And I think the more honestly you feel and the more like authentically you feel, the more will they will move through you more quickly, right? It's just energy and motion,
yeah.
right? So the more you challenge it, confront, restrict it, it's just going to get stuck, stagnate, will persist. So what resists persists, right? What we resist persists. Um, and yeah, it's again, there's just different qualities. That's what makes us human. These different emotional experiences. Otherwise, we'd be thinking machines, and that's not. It's there's. I think the AI will take that job from us. So that will not be a necessary role going forward. We can be more human now. Let the AI do the thinking, and we'll do more of the feeling.
Yeah. I think anxiety is also one that people can feel very all consumed by. Um, I have PTSD from like childhood trauma, so my body's like naturally very hypervigilant, but I've sort of found a way to just have it enhance my perception, I guess, of a space. And I think a lot of times when someone feels anxious, there's this sense of like, oh, I can't go out and do the thing. I'm scared. I'm fearful. Something's bad. It's like they go into that fight or flight. But I feel like even just the
Hmm.
mental shift of, okay, I can just feel the nuances a little bit deeper. I don't have to adopt the story behind them, but just perceiving that nuance. And it sort of goes back to what we were talking
Right.
about earlier, where everything is just perception, and you can literally change your view on everything, whether it's your stomach or your toes or your lungs, I don't know, anything, and it will completely change
Yeah.
your relationship with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because again, these are it's a world that's architected by language, right? Most of our reality is architected by by the words that we're using. Um, and yet the words all have feelings connected to them, whether we're conscious of it or not. So it's this dance. It's like it's an interesting dance between the circle and the square. That's really the cosmic duality. The humans create right angles. Nature doesn't. Nature creates
Mm.
curves. Nature creates and circles are indefinite by their very nature. The pi is an infinite number, right? So you can never know the exact area of a circle. It's always like it's an approximation, right? There is no perfect circle. But with squares, it's definite. So we try to define what is not definable. Reality
Mm.
is not definable. It's slightly, again, it's like the circle. It's slightly indefinite. It has to be, but we work to define it. And so this is the dance between of duality that we all experience. I mean, that's why this realm is a dualistic realm. It's two eyes making one vision, two parents making one child, two arms, two legs for one body. Woman and man, not quite the same. One has the womb, the void, and the other is the spark to light
Mm.
it. Let's say, to ignite.
I feel like it's very interesting because this kind of takes me back to conspiracy theories, conspiracy narratives, and people get so triggered by them sometimes. It's such a heightened space, but it sort of comes back to this conversation where it's not always about proving one truth is truer than another, but just allowing yourself to view things from multiple perspectives. Question things, not
Oh
take
yeah,
things so literally. What do you feel people misunderstand about your work?
I haven't thought about that in ages. I don't know. I don't know. What do you misunderstand about my work? Um, I don't know. I mean, like it's funny because yeah, just reflections. I mean, it's the nature of our of again, it's the nature of mirrors in our reality. It's always going to create different perspectives and reflections that are whatever people are going to take in different directions. But um, no, this kind of gets to I think where we are as a society. A lot of the culture. It's very funny how we have so many different realities taking place simultaneously because of you could say between like especially with social media and whatnot. There's been an amazing like breakdown of uniformity of like mass media, right? Mainstream media. So more people, I think, are experiencing their own reality than ever before in a like less of a collective experience, right? When it comes to like whatever music, movies, like the main cultural phenomena, it's become much more like rare to see a mainstream experience. Most experiences are taking place more individualistically or like in niche groups, right? In smaller groups.
Mm.
But what's interesting is, to me, what's interesting is that even though mainstream like culture has kind of broken down politically, it feels like there's an attempt, like there's more of a bifurcation along party lines. So in the old days, it was like more of like a uniparty that really ran things, and then culture was like simple. Now it's like politics is simple and culture is fragmented.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know. I think the misunderstanding you're talking about kind of cuts to the heart of where we are when it comes to, like, I think the political dynamics of the society, where it's like you're either this or you're that. You know, you if you question things, you're a conspiracy theorist. You must be MAGA. you know, if you, if you pretty much follow like the party line of like whatever they want to call, like, you know, the medical establishment, um, woke media culture, um, I don't know, like just say the Democrat Party, like kind of establishment of thinking. It's very like uniparty in a way, like not uniparty, but like very like check all the boxes.
Mm.
And I've never seen something quite like this, because in the old days it was like you would just disagree, but like, yeah, with the Democrats, whatever, this candidate, I like this, I don't like that. Nowadays, it's not like that anymore. You can't really say, well, I'm okay with, you know, I don't know. I'm okay with like, abortions at, up to a certain point, but I am not a fan of like massive legal immigration. Oh, no, 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 you're a MAGA. It's like you have to fall, like you can't have this distinction of like on issues like we used to, I feel like. There used to be conservative Democrats and there used to be liberal Republicans, and now it's just like either you're MAGA or you're mainstream. That's how it feels.
It's so extreme and it's so emotionally charged, which just keeps it so pocketed to either side. I feel like that room for conversation and for, I don't know, just like individualized thought in that regard is, it's so hard to find a platform for that because people want to like label it and push it somewhere. It's a very interesting time in that regard. And it's just very interesting, the ebbs and flows, I guess, that we go through collectively, where there's this like hyper fixation on labels, and then things just sort of like fall away, and then it plays, and then there's like this new kind of hyper fixation on labels, and then it just kind of falls away. It's very interesting.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, so the simplification of reality, it's it's sort of fascinating. Um, especially on the political spectrum,
Yeah.
where people just, like I said, they can't seem to like critically think and reflect and like have common sense on things. It's like toe the party line kind of mentality.
It's very interesting. My mom, so frequently, so frequently, I'll get a call from her and she'll say something extreme like, "Oh, I heard there's nobody's picking up the garbage in New York City and there's garbage everywhere." And it's like, "No,
Yeah,
it's pretty normal. Nothing's going on." Or like she'll just come in with these really
right.
extreme ideas. Like, where are you hearing
Yeah,
this?
yeah. Well, yeah. So it's like you'll get a video of something, or it's like you'll get a video or a meme, and then it becomes absolute, as opposed to like, yeah. I mean, look, in New York, it's true. The snow sat in the street for like 2 weeks. I was there. Snowstorm, and there was definitely snow sitting on the sidewalks in Manhattan for a long time, for like with more longer than normal. So it's like I experienced that. But it's like I can speak from experience or something to that effect is one thing, but again, to then like make the blanket claim of like, well, there's no one working, that's an assumption, right? And most of the time, unfortunately, we operate from assumptions more than evidence.
It was so interesting. It was during the LA fires. My mom had recently moved to Arizona, and I went to visit her right when the fires, I think it was like right before or right after the fires had started. And I don't watch the news. I don't really watch TV. I'm just sort of like in my own world all the time. But my mom is very like addicted to television and the news. And just out of curiosity, I would go back and forth between the more like liberal and conservative news channels and the the
Hmm.
claims and the stories were so incredibly opposite. It was like, I feel like for me,
Yeah.
because obviously I'm aware of like, you know, propaganda and whatnot, but I think that was the first time that I was like, oh, wow, I understand why people get so stuck to a certain idea because they, especially older
Narrative.
generations, trust the news, and to be hearing such
Yeah,
extreme story differences was so mind-blowing to me.
I bet. I mean,
Crazy.
it's interpretive. I mean, every event is interpretive. That's the whole point. Like, and again, like the boomers, God love them. They're they're having their experience of reality. The young generation is coming up more with like TikTok and other social media sources, which is great because hopefully it gives like it gives different voice. Again, you can't censor that voice as readily. Although I've been censored from TikTok, so it's pretty crazy. Like my YouTube channel was banned, TikTok I'm banned. But obviously, if you know how to navigate the algorithm, there's obviously a way of getting around it. Yeah, and so at least you have different, again, you have different voices. Whereas when you're, and I've hosted news programs and stuff, and like that's a scripted set. And if you've ever seen, there's occasional lapses where someone says something authentic, and it's like they don't get invited back, back by the network if they're a guest, saying something off the cuff that's like that hits too close, whatever that hits that hits too close to home, or like that again, like the corporate media, if you do stories that challenge the corporate ownership or whatnot, you can get axed very quickly. So um yeah, who pays you when it comes to corporate media. When it's citizen journalism or people hosting their own platforms, you tend to be a little bit more you know freewheeling and hopefully more authentic. But again, it's you still, ultimately it all comes down to consciousness. You end up still trying to play to a certain audience. Like this is the hand that feeds me, and this is the audience that responds to me. So I'm going to stay within, this narrative, these paradigms, these ideas, and so they can't challenge it. And that's another big problem. You get like, you may agree with certain, like I said, you may agree with certain people and their attitude and their approach, but then you realize like, yeah, but then they become too ideological, or they become like they're kind of stuck within their shtick. Whether you're doing media, or whether you're doing news, whether you're doing you name it, comedy, acting, whatever. Like there are certain people that get stuck in their shtick and they don't want to, you know, just keep breaking the mold and changing it up.
How would you, I guess, for those that want to stay informed, how would you suggest they do
Oh God,
so
what I
in a
want, like
way?
someone asked me this, like, what news? What do you want to be informed about? You know how you want to be informed. I'll tell you how I want to be informed. You ready? You wake up, you meditate, you open yourself to receive the energy of the earth, the information that's gonna find you, and then you live your life. If you want to get riled up or engaged in something, turn the TV on, go on X, go on social media. You're gonna find something. It's gonna find you. But if you want to just live your life, like trust that the information that's meant to find you is gonna find you.
Absolutely. I feel like for me personally, just because my system is very sensitive, I have to be very mindful of what I put my focus and energy on. And if there's something
Sure.
important, you will find out. You will be fine. If anything, it allows you
Exactly.
to maintain more control over your day to day because you don't feel this like crippling anxiety of this like impending doom, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. No, I mean, anxieties, I think I had that in different phases, mostly during COVID. Not like consistently, because I was pretty chill about COVID itself, but the lockdowns, the pressure that was being created around it. There was a lot of, I think, anxiety as to like, are we really going to experience this dystopian new world order now? And thankfully enough people resisted. I felt like enough states and enough people said no, so it didn't have the digital surveillance takeover and like the forced injections. I mean, it was close to forced, but it wasn't like legally forced. It was more pressured, and so there were a lot of things that were like very dystopian around that time. But I felt like we prevailed, we survived it. So yeah, that was one of the darkest. And then actually, like 2020, like actually the whole era, like between COVID, the Biden years, it was like one thing after another. It was COVID, then it was the Ukraine war starts, then the Palestine Gaza war starts, and then it's just like, oh man, I think we're finally breaking this cycle of like endless conflict. Feels.
Yeah. Just to start winding things down, what would you say the gifts and strengths are in your bloodline, and what lessons generationally are you currently working through?
Oh boy, I'm working on opening my heart. I'm working on opening my heart and living more from heart and embodiment and authenticity. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that like most ancestors, we have a lot of trauma and pain and uh, you name it, wars, depressions, scarcity mentality, fears around scarcity, right? Um, and it can create cynicism and negative thinking. So the more we just live from the heart, I think that's a place of abundance. It's more in tune with nature of the earth, the cycles of the earth, right? Give and take. It's a natural flow. Let go, like let things flow. So yeah,
What strengths does your bloodline carry?
yeah. I mean, we have the name Stone for a reason. We're pretty resilient. Resilient, we last. Stone is the real magic, lives in the stones. Look at those mountains, think about how they endure.
That's beautiful. Well, where can people find you?
Wherever they find me. Seanstone.info is my website. Yeah, seanstone.info, my website's good. It has links to my social media and stuff.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was such a fun exploration. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to talk with you, and hopefully it made sense.
It did. And if it didn't, then it was in the most wonderful way. Thank you, Sean, for your time, for coming to chat with us and share your beautiful thoughts. As always, everything Sean Stone will be linked in the show notes. I hope you have a splendid week ahead. I am sending all my love, and I'll see you next week for Mystic Mail. Thank you so much for listening to Diary of a Psychic Medium with me, Amber Amrine. To learn more about me, book a session, learn about my mentorship program, all that good stuff, you can visit channelwithamber.com. Follow me on Instagram at channelwithamber. Special thank you to Unicorn Heads for my theme song, A Mystical Experience. I'll see you next time.